Alright, hey everyone, welcome back to another video of Salesforce Makes Sense. And in this video, we'll talk about and we'll continue our journey on Apex Developer Curriculum. And we started off understanding collections. We did a bit of understanding lists, sets, and now it's time for understanding maps. So as part of collections, maps is an important collection that we should master, and we should be able to use it at pretty much all the Apex methods we write because it makes your life convenient as a developer, right? We will see why, and we'll understand maps as a collection better in this in the next few 5 or 10 minutes. All right. So we have talked about one dimensional collections, right? You have a list of string, you have a list of integer, you have a set of IDs. But then what if you want a combination of data to be stored, more like in a grid format, right? So let's say this is your employee ID and this is your name. So employee ID versus employee name is the structure I want to save. Can we achieve that on a list or a set? Possibly no, right? So for such scenarios, you need a collection that is capable of holding key value pairs, and that's where maps come in. All right. So I'll take you to Salesforce, and we are on our collections in Apex class. Let's close our previous methods, and now we'll start writing a new method, and this would be called public static void handle map collections. All right. So how did we define a list? We said list, the name of the list equals new list, bracket open, bracket close. What about set? This was the template, right? And within this angular brackets, you would provide the data type. Correct. Now this data type can be any and every data type. Correct. It can be account, contact, list of string, integer, boolean, anything. All the data types that exist can be put here. Now the syntax of map is very similar, and you have the same syntax. This bit stays the same, right? But now since you have a key value pair, you need to denote it like this: key comma value, and then the same thing here. So instead of one dimensional like list and set, it is two dimensional. Correct? And key and value both have to be defined as relevant data types. So what can you do? You can say something like string comma string, which means the keys of your map will be strings and the values will also be strings. Now this becomes a relevant map variable declaration. So I'll just try to save this line. So it is saved up fine. Correct? Now what kind of data can this particular variable hold? So the name of the variable is map name, which is not a fancy variable, but let's say employee details, right? So what kind of data can it hold? It can hold information like your employee ID versus your employee name. All right. Now what do you notice here? You have two values in every row, right? This is your key and this is your value. So based on the key, you can find out what value resides or what value is part of that particular key. Now, if you see, we have two strings as data type, meaning the key will also be a string and the value will also be a string. What if this was, let's say, an integer? So you'd have to just instantiate it with the integer, and now this would be 1, or let's say 1025. So not a string, it should be a number, it should be an integer. Okay. How about if you have integer and boolean as the value? In that case, the keys would be 1, 1025, 153, and the value should be either true or false. Correct? So this is how your data would look like inside a map based on the kind of data types you've used for your key and value. Okay, we'll start with a very basic example. We'll take the employee ID versus employee name. How we'll basically see all the methods that we can understand. So employee details. Now what did we do for list and set? We simply said dot add to add a new value. Correct? But we cannot use the add method here. For maps, you have a method called put. Okay, so what you can do is you can pass two parameters to this method, the first one being the key and the second one being the value. Now, what should be your key? Let's switch it back to the data type that we want. We want to keep it as string comma string. Okay. So what should be my key? It should be a string value, and the value should also be a string value. I'll say EMP1045 is, let's say, Sheldon Cooper. All right. I'll use my put method one more time to enter another key value pair. So I'll just say put, and I'll say 1025, and this is Rachel Green. Right? So what have I done here? I've created a map variable and I've added two key value pairs to my map. Now let's quickly take a look at how does it look when we debug it. How does it hold the information? How does it understand the key value pair thing? Okay, let's go ahead and say save. I'll get rid of the extra spaces and I'll say execute conditionals in collections in Apex dot handle map collections. Get rid of all the parameters. This is an empty parameter method, and I'll say execute open log. So this should be collections in Apex. The class name is incorrect. Okay, so let's look at the debug log at line number 9. Let's click on debug only. So you'll notice the key is EMP1024 and the value is with the equal to sign, which is Sheldon Cooper. Then separated by comma, this is your first key value pair and this is your second key value pair. Make sense? So this is how you are storing information in maps, and this is how you can add information in maps. All right. So if you want to add key value pairs, you can use the put method. All right. How do you remove a specific key, or how do you remove a specific key value pair? You simply say employee details dot remove and you mention the key name. So what should be your key? Let's say we want to remove the second item, which is 1025. So I'll simply say dot remove and I'll say the key name that I want to remove. Okay. So I'll just call it before initial list and I'll call this removed 1025. Okay, let's save. Let's execute. Let it save. Yeah, let's say execute. And now the initial list should have two values with two keys, obviously. And after removal, you should only see one value, which is Sheldon Cooper. Rachel Green has been removed from the map because we use the remove method. Okay. What if you want to add another key value pair? And let's say you want to put someone with the employee ID EMP1024, which has already been added. All right. Let's say I try to put another key value pair in the same map and I try to debug my map and I'll call it final values. Save. So I'm trying to save it first of all. Saves up fine. Let's click on execute. Let's see the debug log. You will notice that initially it started off with two values. 1024 was with Sheldon Cooper, 1025 was with Rachel Green. We went ahead and removed 1025, so only Sheldon Cooper with 1024 remained. And then we added another node or another value with the same employee ID, which was for Sheldon Cooper. And what did the system do? It override the previous key value pair with the new value. Why? Because in a map, keys always have to be unique. You cannot have same keys twice in your map. Okay, so it would not be like EMP1024 equal to Sheldon Cooper and then one more entry for Leonard. It will not be possible because keys have to be unique in a map. The values can be duplicate. Let's quickly check how the values can be duplicate. So if I say 1026 and I put Sheldon Cooper again and I say save and let's see the final list one more time. So now 1024 and 1026 are both name of the same person, let's say. Will the system override the previous one? No, it will give you three values, or rather two values now. Both of them being Sheldon Cooper, but the keys are different. So the bottom line of the story is the keys have to be unique, values can be same, values can be identical, values can be duplicate. All right. Now let me quickly add more lines here. All right. So I'll just say, let's say employee.put. Let me add. Okay. So what I've done is I've added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 employees. Correct. Now, what I want to do is I want to just take a look at what are all the employee IDs that are present in my map. How do I do that? I use another method that is called key set. So if I want to see all the keys that are part of my map, I'll simply say employee details, which is the variable name dot key set, which is another function. Okay. So if I say all the employee IDs are, and then similarly, if I want to see just the values, so I can use another method. I'll just call the same debug log, and I'll say all the employee names are, and the name of the method is values, as simple as that. So for keys, it is key set, and for values, it is values. That's it. So you'll be able to see all the IDs, and here you'll be able to see all the names, basically your key versus value. Okay, let's quickly take a look. Execute, say debug only. So if you see, the first debug log gives you all the employee IDs, and the second one gives you all the names. So this is how you can segregate the key set and the values if you need it for your use cases, and you will definitely need the key set for iterations. All right, so this is an important function that you will mostly use when you are doing Apex use cases. All right, how do you know the number of records that are present in your map? The function or the method is same, just like list and set. It is size. So I'll simply say employee details dot size. Okay, let's quickly take a look. So the total employee should be 6, I believe, right? So let's see, debug only. So you have total employee 6. So this is how you are able to see the size of your map. All right, so the keys are always unique, the values can be duplicate, and it will always be a collection of key value pairs. So whatever lists and sets are not capable of doing, you can do it on maps, because you have a grid format, you have a row versus column, or basically a matrix format. You have that collection of key value pairs, right? So whatever data you need integrated or binded with, let's say A versus B or A to B, all of those kind of things can be in maps. All right. How do you get a specific value? How do you find a specific record from this particular employee details variable? So if I wanted to fetch what is the content of, let's say we quickly pass a parameter here. So I'll say string employee ID. So let's say this is connected to our front end, and I want to basically fetch a specific person's name which has been passed as part of this method, right? So I'll simply say system.debug. You are seeking information for employee details.get. So you have a method that's called get. All right. And you have to pass the key here. So once you say get, it will basically return the value that is associated to this particular key. All right. Let's quickly go ahead and check it. I'll remove the other 3 logs. Save, execute, and this time I need to pass a parameter here, right? So I'll simply say emp1025 or 26. Let's see, execute. So it should return Rajesh K. Let's take a look at the debug log. So it says you are seeking information for Rajesh K, right? So this is how you can find a value for by specifying a specific key. Okay. If you want to take a look at more um, Apex methods on map, let's quickly take a look at the map reference. This is the reference guide from Salesforce, and you have another set of probably 6 or 7 more methods maybe. All right. So you have this is empty method also available here. If you want to check whether the map is empty or not. So this is where I initialized it. Correct? Currently this is empty. Currently, as in at line number 7, it is empty. It is only after line number 9 it started getting values. So if I check employee details dot is empty, it will return true because it is empty. And I'll try to check it after all the values have been added to see whether it is still empty. It should not be empty, right? It should have some values. So it should say false. So this should be true and this should be false. Let's quickly test it out. I'll say execute. I'll just execute the same line. So the first one is true, meaning it is empty, and after the values were initialized, it is not empty at all. When does this come into help? When you're actually working with maps and you want to check whether if it is empty or not, and if it is not empty, you want to proceed with certain kind of operations. Okay, so I'll encourage you to take a look at some of these methods. Like for example, you have a method that's called contains key, right? So what does that do? Similar to how we did it in a list, right? Contains check whether your list contains that element or not. Similarly, here if you want to check on a map whether it contains a specific key or not, you can use the contains key method. Okay, you have to pass the key and then it will either return true or false. Okay, so I'll encourage you to take a look at probably 2 or 3 methods from here. Try to do it on your own, and yeah, that should be good to set up your base for collections, list, sets, and maps. All right. I understand that collections can be scary because when it comes to actual use cases, right? We have discussed a very plain, very basic example of understanding maps with just 2 simple plain data types. What if this becomes list of string and this becomes list of account, right? That's a use case. You can have a map which is of type this, meaning the key would be a list of string and the value would be a list of account. What if you want to do something like id comma map of string comma list of account? Even this is possible. Even this is a declaration. This says that probably you are trying to store all the IDs as keys, and for each ID you have another map as the value. So things get a bit tricky and things get a bit complicated when map collections change how they look and they get complex with the kind of data you want to store inside them. Correct? So this is a very basic use case that we have took and we have understood just to understand the collection in general and understand the methods it provides. However, I understand that when it gets complex and when you actually do use cases, when we will actually do use cases, we'll work on real-time scenarios with collections that will get complicated. But then again, if you are someone who's afraid of collections, don't worry. When we start our Apex use cases, which is coming very soon in our curriculum, after we complete a bit more of things that I'm supposed to cover, we'll start a good chunk of use cases, and that should build your confidence around using maps like a pro, right? That would be the idea. So we'll have use cases designed around using maps with database operations, trying to create collections, storing data in them in such a way that if you are writing loops, you want a map, you'll be able to use it. If you are wanting to create a query and you want to assign that entire value to a map, you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to check multiple maps whether they contain value or not, and you'll be able to decide what to do and what not to do. So those kind of things will come soon. This was just a brief on how to start off with collections and what kind of collections exist and what are the methods that are available at our disposal to use. All right. So if you are someone who's afraid of collections, who tries not to use a map, but then goes with, let's say, nested for loops, nested 3 for loops, or you are someone who's not aware of anything at all and you're starting this developer series from scratch with this curriculum, don't worry. A lot of things are coming as part of the use cases. We'll do practice examples. These are all just explanations of what collections look like. We'll be doing practice examples with actual real-time scenarios. understanding the problem use case and then trying to solve it on our own, and then understanding how to use different collections all in this curriculum. It is happening soon. It will be coming soon, so you don't have to worry about it, right? So that's just one last note I wanted to put as part of this video. And next, we'll proceed into loops, right? So what we have done is we have understood variables, we have understood collections, we have also understood conditionals, we have understood operators. So we are good to start loops, and we'll only be covering a special loop, which is the for loop, which is pretty much everything you'll be using for your work whenever you're doing iterations. So in the next tutorial, let's start loops.